couple of quick ones. Is the portfolio washing its own face?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not like I'm having to go to work every day to fund them.
Yep, which is what we've talked about. Yeah, that's good.
It's more around the bank, around me having to do it to show the bank that I can fund them.
Well, I mean, the reality is you're going to have already a strong relationship with the bank in terms of your credit history and your ability to service that debt. So that's number one. So you want to start forming a relationship with who your lenders are, because in terms, I'm going through a similar situation right now where a couple of our loans have come off 5-year interest only periods, and I want to roll to another 5 years, and that is a credit critical. And so what that means is you've got to put another application up. And so you're sort of going through that. Now, they can see on my banking, they can see the amount of money that I've got in offset accounts and so forth. So that in itself should mean that it's a pretty straightforward exercise. You've got until 2027. So what we want to be able to do is, where we can, is to try and build up that buffer. Okay, so if we can build up that buffer, how many lenders are we working with currently? 3. Okay, so I would, before that time, I'd try and see whether I could explore getting at least 2 of them with one lender, and then try and have a conversation with that lender around their appetite for rolling one over, and then potentially the other one going to P&I. And in the interim, building up your offset, so you're in a situation where you've got enough to cover that P&I, which means you don't have the pressure on your exertion income for a period of time. Because remember, this is, because if they're all rolling over at roughly the same time, that's your pain point. So what we're trying to do is basically exhaust all of that and stretch them out. And, you know, let's try and eat the elephant one bite at a time, rather than going to try and do all 3 and just give them a run at that sort of conversation.
The final question there around if you did have to sell them, I think you've actually answered that in the question, because you're actually developing a matrix around, okay, well, I've got these properties, and then so you put the addresses at the top, and down the left you do the criteria on which you want to decide. So you put in the question, you know, I've got to consider their location, what yields they're getting, their future growth potential, any foreseeable development opportunity. That all becomes part of the matrix when you're making these decisions, because, you know, there's recycle costs, how much we think we're going to get by keeping that one, the opportunity cost versus the other one. So I think you're in the right headspace around what that looks like. But ultimately, you will want to have clarity around North Star the line, because we might make an assumption, oh, you sell the one that's got the least potential for capital growth. But then we might not understand that you need more income. So by selling one that has better income with less capital growth, we might actually undo the very goal that we're trying to achieve. So
I think, yeah, from me coming on the podcast with you guys, it really made me then come away, have a real good sit down, think like how much I got from that, the position I'm in now. And I think I've got this amazing opportunity to shape the life into what I really want. And I almost feel like if I was to sell 1 or 2 or something, I could be doing this a couple of times a year. I could be, like, I don't need to be working every day to keep a $3.4 million property portfolio, you know.
Yeah. Wow. The richest man in the graveyard is still in the graveyard, isn't he?
I'd be happy after everything to have $500 a week and be helping people like we have the last few days. Like,
yeah, that's a cool position.
So it's almost, yeah, like, I feel like there's a possibility to turn that into reality, but it's, what do I do to do that?
Yeah, there's a couple of other things in there as well. This is how powerful loss aversion is, that people will come to us and say, oh, this one's done really well, so let's sell that. This dud over here, I'm going to wait until it actually starts making money. Right? And so you're like, wait a minute, you're selling your best performer and you're keeping, it's like saying, you know, okay, I'm going to sell Apple or Microsoft or something like that, and I'm going to keep some little 2-bob company over here because it's gone backwards. So again, it is still case by case in terms of what we'll look at, but hopefully some of the fundamentals we've discussed this morning around what is the economic activity of where that property is located more broadly, what's the likelihood of that economic growth, that town growing or that city growing. So if you've got them well located, those assets over the decades will probably still perform better than some that might be in, say, regional areas or whatever it may look like. So that's maybe a starting point, and then it is coming down to that case-by-case story in terms of, okay, well, what are we trying to achieve? You know, and then how do we restructure that?
So I guess I think the wonderful thing is you've positioned yourself to have a wonderful choice at that point in time. Anyway, so
Just want to make the most of that, right?
knuckle down, keep doing what you're doing, build up those buffers, and at that sort of 6 to 9 months out from needing to make that critical decision, just reassess. And when you get the refinancing, it's probably not like you're going to have just left. You'll have thought well in advance about what your next sort of stage of embarking on your travel odyssey would look like. So I think I've got a feeling you'll be all right, mate. I've got a feeling.
One of the considerations around that, in terms of purpose and contribution, there's quite some interesting stuff that even Scott and I were speaking about on the bus on one of the trips up there was, let's say hypothetically 5 more years of what you're doing now with the working that you're doing can potentially buy you 10 years of doing that contribution work or 20 years of doing that, as opposed to stopping now could buy you 2 years of doing that before things have to change. So have a think about, what that looks like as well, because you're on the precipice of getting over the hill. And then when you're over the hill, it's the view's pretty good from there. And then ultimately that then will give you that opportunity to do all the things that you want to do. Because you might be going, all right, I'm willing to take that step back now because I'm so passionate about that opportunity, which is great. And if the strength in that position is so great, money's nothing, right? At the end of the day, it's nothing. But if you can potentially push through for 5 more years, you're only 30 odd, then you could be doing this for 15, 20 years, as part of that story, right?